Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Happy Saturday, the 17th of July. Proclamation news and Gavin. Thank you ever so much for coming through today. We've got quite a lot to look through on the political spectrum, some criminology. We can look ahead of the UK road users. See the incidents. I like to give the updates on road incidents in the UK. Thank you all so much tuning in. Welcome Danny Wong, Charlie Nelson and Connor J. Miller. And we're live on YouTube as well, so thank you for tuning in. If you're on YouTube and you've just tuned in, thank you ever so much. It's going to be a great show again. Yesterday was slightly different. We're talking about, a whole wide range of criminal offences. I want to give people guidance. What's the point thinking about offending or re-offending for the matter? Not that everyone has, but it may be a possibility in the future. You get provoked and you want to cause a provocation. Anyway, before we look into the UK road instance, I want to give you the shout out to my two main sponsors. You're going to make a change. You're going to change your bad habits, bad eating, maybe, perhaps, bad dieting, suffer with alcoholism or narcotics, and you want to give up, you want to make a change. You can't give up, it's just mind over matter, and the matter over the mind. Anyway, relaxuk.com. Relax UK Limited health, travel and wellness products since 1997. UK relaxation shops selling various ranges of products from relaxation, travel, well-being, biofeedback, sleeping and natural products. That's relaxuk.com. You can Google search it and check their website. Got loads and loads of products. I've got some vitamin C. It's the best vitamin C on the market. If you've got a Ferrari F50, you're not going to buy cheap petroleum at Tesco's. You need to go to, get the top of the range at BP garage. You have to shop for what you need for your, to fuel your body. Absolutely. Anyway, we're also proudly sponsored by PSS Alarms. Very etiquette and pragmatic works carried out. All works covered, including central station monitoring provided. All work done according to insurance requirements. This is a friend of mine's company. He's carried out works in Harry Kane's stepmother's house in Hertfordshire, Potts Bar. He's carried out etiquette works in Exeter, such as Casbah Restaurant and many more big businesses, clubs, bars and restaurants. Get a pen and paper ready. Installation and maintenance of intruder alarms, fire alarms, CCTV, all works guaranteed and certified to SSARB standards. With 24-hour call-out service, can provide CCTV for pubs, clubs, restaurants or new business setup. Secure your business. Secure your home, secure your business. Your safety and priorities in your business are paramount. So think safety, think first. Secure your equity. You can mention Professor Johnson for an extra discount. Here's the mobile number. 07908. I'll give you the first five numbers again. 07908. 07908. The last six numbers as follows. So you got 07908 for the first five. For the last six, 216142. 216142. 216142. 07908 216142. 07908 216142. 07908 216142. See, I remember that without even looking at it. So if I can, you should be able to. I said it several occasions. Anyway, before entering UK roads, do not enter a vehicle under sleep deprivation, under influence of alcoholism, narcotics. Making sure you and passengers on board have seatbelts adjacent to the car seat and babies have their baby seat adjacent to the car seat with baby seat adapter. Also, making sure your MOT is updated, your insurance, you're insured as a driver, and you've got a driver's license. Sounds stupid, but the amount of ludicrous things we see go for the magistrates' courts, people driving without a license. I mean, you booked your theory test. You got a car though. Your mum and dad bought your car. It's outside your on your drive. But you get most youngsters, youth of today, even adults, some adults, because they don't pass that test until their 30s. They think, oh, I might as well just use the car. Why should I get a train to Liverpool Street when I can use the car? Why would you put yourself at risk of losing your license before you even got it? I don't know. Or even people that lost their license, for drink driving or whatever offences. Some people do stupid things. I know some things can't be, you can't turn back time, kicking yourself. Maybe you don't drink, but you turn your life around for whatever reason. Now you're kicking yourself, thinking, why not? Now you drive your car. Why would you risk your license before you get back? There's no point. No point. Wait your time. Even if you have to do your test again, do your test again. No problem. Anyway, make sure your engine oil, your water coolant tank are topped up to maximum level. Hello there. Make sure your PSI limits and your tyre pressure is pumped up to the maximum level. Check in for further police instructions. Check for road works ahead, and make sure, as when you're turning into a safe, sufficient direction of choice, make sure motorcyclists or cars are not overtaken. We're looking in UK roads now. That's my little. I like to give out my little tips for driving. Some of the obvious things that we don't do. Driving whilst on the mobile phone. Driving while eating at the steering wheel. Silly things can take your eyes off the road and cause an incident. Anyway, A133. Heavy traffic in Colchester, between Colchester and Clacton-on-Sea. Heavy traffic, holiday traffic on A133 southbound around the Freighton turn-off. Holiday traffic. So that's that. You know where the Freighton roundabout is, just where the Manningham coal auction is. Anyone that's from the same constituency as me will know what I'm talking about. Heavy traffic on the A133 southbound around Freighton turn-off. Holiday traffic. This is first reported at 9 a.m. this morning. So that'd be there. If you're travelling back to London from Essex, you're better off going after about 7 o'clock. It's going to be rammo because of the weather. Everyone's going to want to go to the beach, the seaside. Anyway, up from Colchester, just before the Chelmsford turn-off. B1256, accident, traffic code well, report of accident on a B156 Main Road near Francis Road. Traffic is coping well. This is reported at 10:05 a.m. this morning. About an hour ago, this incident. Southend. A127, slow traffic on A127 South End Arterial Road eastbound between Billericay, no bridge turn off, and Christopher Martin Road, the Mayflower Retail Park, reported at 9 a.m. in Watford. Last but not least, there's loads of incidents. We're not going to sit all day giving out car incidents. I don't want to make the show just about car incidents. A411, slow traffic in construction area on A411 Chalk Hill around A4008 Aldenham Road, Bushy Arches. In the construction area, 10 big traffic lights are in place. At 9:46 a.m. is reported. Thank you all ever so much for tuning in. Let me just tell you something. I like to talk about provocations, inhumane, incompetent, inappropriate, incomprehensible, inhumane humanities. Or here we are. Last year's, all the lunatics of last year in the world. The most notorious criminals locked up in the UK from 2020. It's 58 of them. I'm not going to go through the whole 58, but I'm going to give you an idea what we're up against throughout society. Anyway, the year 2020 saw scores of murders, rapists, terrorists and abusers put behind bars in courts across the UK. You don't know what the police are up against, the NHS, because obviously they've got to put the victims in prison, possibly the fire brigade if arson was at the horizon. Despite the coronavirus pandemic slowing the justice system down this year, hundreds of criminals faced justice remotely as judges delivered their verdicts. via video links. A teenager who threw a 6-year-old boy off a balcony at a Tate Modern gallery, and 6 serial rapists, Reynard Sinaga, were just 2 of the notorious criminals locked up for their crimes this year. In London, a double murder who hid the bodies of 2 women inside a freezer in his flat, and a gunman who shot a mother and her son, sneaking them into her home, were both handed lengthy prison sentences. Elsewhere, a man obsessed with serial killers and horror films who murdered a stranger with the help of his boyfriend was locked up. As were the 3 teenage killers of newlywed police officer Andrew Harper. We've taken a look at some of the biggest court cases that shocked the nation last year. Here are 58 of the most notorious criminals locked up in 2020. Reynard Sinaga in January, the one we were just talking about. The 36-year-old raped up to 200 men who were out clubbing in Manchester over the course of 2.5 years. That's shocking, isn't it? 200 men in 2.5 years. Is that even possible? How's that even possible? 200 men in the course of 2 years. 365 days a year. It's 52 weeks of a year. So he's going out like 3 times in a week. He's going out 3 times in a week. 52 times 2. That's 104. So that's not going out once a week. It's going out 2 or 3 times in a week. Shocking. A court heard how he'd lured drunk men back to his city centre department before poisoning them with GHB, raping them and filming it. Sinaga was convicted of raping 44 men, aged 17 to 36, over 2.5 years, but police believed around 150 more victims could still come forward based on the hundreds of hours of video footage they have seen. Detectives say many of his victims are unlikely to know they were raped because of the memory wiping effect of the drug Sinaga used to knock them out. Sinaga was eventually caught after a teenager woke up while he was being raped and beat the sex attacker so badly he had to be hospitalised. During the unprecedented crime spree, deprived Sinaga carried out 136 rapes, 8 attempted rapes, 13 sexual assaults and 2 assaults by penetration. The rapist was initially given a 30-year minimum jail term by the judge Suzanne Goddard, the QC, who described Sinaga as an evil serial sexual predator. The court appeal ruled this month that his jail term would increase to at least 40 years. Absolutely deserved it. More than a life sentence. Absolutely deserves it. Shocking, horrific information. We're going to go through some more serial killers of last year because we've got more to come. We're in 2021. Mohammed Chowdhury. Heard this name? No, I know the surname from. Just not rung some bells. But more than likely is no relation to the person I know. A jealous and controlling husband who became consumed with anger and resentment after finding out his wife had an affair was found guilty of brutally murdering her. Mohammed Chowdhury, 36, stabbed his wife, 33-year-old wife, Samia Bayaz, more than 75 times at their home in Smallbridge, Rochdale. She suffered particularly severe cuts to her neck, suggesting an attempt at decapitation, prosecutors said. 4 knives were recovered from the scene containing Miss Bayaz's blood and DNA. Chowdhury claimed to have no memory of the horrific attack and told the court he loved his wife. But the jury took less than 20 minutes to unanimously find him guilty of murder. Miss Riaz, a mental health nurse at the Royal Oldham Hospital, had told others she was afraid of her husband and that he had assaulted and threatened her. Chowdhury was jailed for life with a minimum sentence of 28 years during a hearing at Manchester Crown Court. He loved his wife, but you wouldn't kill her, would you? If you love your wife, you'd let her go. If you loved her, you'd let her go. Same as Matt, Wife doing that to husband, you'd let her go. If you loved her that much, you'd let her go. No care in the world taking someone's life. Got to think of the consequences, haven't they? Some people are ludicrous. Man who tried to stab mum and baby to death, leaving them with some of the worst injuries police have ever seen jailed within 21 years. Camille Kopek, 28, locked the victim inside a property and launched a brutal knife attack in the early hours of July 24 last year in Hereford. Police were called around 3 a.m. and found a mother and a 9-month-old baby had both been stabbed. The baby had a cut to the head and the mother had multiple wounds, including a stab wound and cut to her neck. The crazed mum escaped through a window with a baby despite her serious injuries. Kopek of Hereford went on trial accused of attempted murder, which he only pleaded guilty to on the final day of his 4-day trial. Camille Kopek, I mean, I'm not going to talk like I'm talking directly to him because, you know, he's neither here or there. He's an incompetent humanity. I wouldn't even give him the fresh of air. But to cut a baby's head, how sick you got to be in the head to cut a newborn, but any age baby. What has a baby done? What has a baby done to deserve to be cut? Not deserve to be cut, but to get revoked by a baby, go and cut the baby. Why would you even do that? The least a baby can do is scream and cry. That's not enough for someone to go and cut a baby? It's shocking. Westmisnter. Burglar of Westmisnter was jailed for sadistic sexual assault and murder of an 89-year-old woman in her home. The judge branded 23-year-old a very dangerous man, as he sentenced him to a minimum of 34 years in jail in the Old Bailey Court, London. I mean, the 89-year-old lady does not deserve that. But what's a 23-year-old wanting to do with sleeping with someone that's 89 years of age? She's coming up to prime of her life, and he wants to go and sleep with someone that age. What is the matter? The court heard how Dempster, who had been drinking and smoking crack, broke into the widow's home in Tottenham, London, while she was asleep in August last year. He sexually assaulted his frail victim before gathering her round their head and inflicting fatal injuries. Dorothy Warmer, 89, was described as independent and feisty, and the court heard that her death had brought extreme amounts of heartache to the family. That's terrible. Absolutely terrible. I mean, I'm not saying it's right for them to do it. I'm glad the police have took it both into account that it doesn't matter if she's old or young, it's still rape, but murder as well is just outrageous. Dempster previously visited Mr. Warmer's home around a month before the attack when he carried out some gardening work. On the night he broke in, he attacked his victim while she was still in bed. He left the next morning after taking her purse and 2 bottles of alcohol from the house and vomited several times as he fled. The court was told that Dempster later told someone it wasn't even worth it, as he only got 100 quid. Only got 100 quid, cheeky git. Last but not least, I'm not going to go for them all. Lee Abbott, a man brutally stabbed a pub landlord to death after he barred him from his pub. Lee Abbott is serving a minimum sentence of 28 years in jail after jury convicting him of murder. Christian fought outside his pub in Woolness, Cheshire. In August last year, during an 8-day trial, Liverpool Crown Court, a jury heard how Abbott told arresting officers, "You don't need any evidence. I've stabbed him for fun." I stabbed him to F-U-C-K, actually. Sorry. The court heard Mr. Thornton had banned Mr. Abbott from the Farmer and Pincers pub 9 days before his death, after he heard bragging about carrying a knife and threatening to burn premises down. CCTV footage from the day of the attack shows Abbott walking away from the pub after confronting the landlord, before turning around, running back towards him, pulling a knife from a backpack and lunging it in him. Mr. Thornton was on the phone to the police to report Mr. Abbott when he stabbed him 11 times in the space of 21 seconds. The court has heard. Shocking, absorbing information. That's enough to sum up on a Saturday morning.
our UK video. A week or so ago, I watched this video by JJ McCullough talking about Canada's fringe parties, and I thought it was super interesting. It's actually linked down below if you want to check it out. I took a look, and it turns out that he hadn't done one for Britain, so I thought we could explore a similar idea. Because as much as Britain might feel like a two-party system, with Labour and the Conservatives dominating the Commons and ballot boxes, they're not the only players. The Tories and Labour certainly do rule the game, as the only parties with a genuine shot at winning a majority though, with the next tier of parties realistically being unable to win a majority. However, they could still steal votes from the big two, or form a coalition, as the Lib Dems proved. Then you've got a bunch of parties that, while significant in their areas, notably Wales and Northern Ireland, they're not really a presence on the national level. Finally, we have the ones we'll discuss today, the true fringe parties, who, while putting forward candidates regularly, have total vote tallies in the thousands or low tens of thousands. So let's explore who they are, what they stand for, and why these parties even bother continuing to exist. We are incredibly close to 500,000 subscribers on this channel, so if you want more content from us and want to lend us a hand, please hit the button. So then, who are these smaller fringe parties? Well, for our list, we're taking a look at the parties who picked up fewer than 50,000 votes in 2019, but more than 5,000, which gives us 6 parties. The Yorkshire Party, UKIP, the Liberal Party, N2, the Monster Raving Loony Party, and the Christian People's Alliance. These parties are clearly very small and stand with no real chance of winning a seat, let alone an election. So why are they even taking part? Well, let's explain what they stand for. The largest of this group are the Yorkshire Party, who won 29,201 votes in 2019, securing them 0.1% of the total vote and 0 seats. The party was founded in 2014 and aims to give Yorkshire devolved powers through a Yorkshire Assembly, roughly similar to the devolved powers of Wales, Scotland, and Northern Ireland. Specifically, they advocate for education, the environment, transport, and housing to be devolved. This is their biggest policy, which, let's be real, makes sense. Although they're the largest of the fringe parties, they're aware that they're not going to gain national office, so they know that it's probably best to campaign on one specific issue, instead of writing a full manifesto. Nonetheless, they do have some other policies, which they themselves categorize as socially democratic and economically centrist. On tea brands, they've also made clear their support, obviously, for Yorkshire tea. While they have had some success in second-order elections, such as winning some council seats, the party has never succeeded in winning a seat in the House of Commons. We should point out that they only field candidates in Yorkshire, so the fact that they were the 6th largest party in terms of vote in England is quite a feat. However, even in the places they do run, their vote count still isn't that high, and they failed to get their deposit back in any general election race they've run. Next, let's take a look at UKIP. Formerly the bastion of Brexit and a major challenger for the Conservatives, stealing many from the right of the Tory fold, they've well and truly fallen off in the last few years, gaining only 22,817 votes in 2019 and securing 0 seats. This is largely because their former leader, Nigel Farage, jumped ship and started a new party, one who did far better in the election. But what does UKIP stand for today? Well, unsurprisingly, UKIP still stands against the European Union and what they call rapid mass uncontrolled immigration. They claim also to stand for the following principles: patriotism, national democracy, political democracy, economic democracy, liberalism, and traditionalism. Some of these principles do seem to come into conflict though, and while they claim to be a traditionalist party, their first policy commitment on their website is reforming the House of Lords, and they go on to say that they support voting reform, and neither of those policies seem particularly traditional to me. Unlike the Yorkshire Party though, they have had some electoral success historically. In 2014, they became the first party in more than a century, other than Labour and the Conservatives, to win a national poll. This was the 2014 European elections, which the party won, meaning that an anti-EU party represented the UK in the EU. Clearly, this was the sign of things to come. In addition to this win, around the same time, they also succeeded in gaining MPs in the House of Commons, although it wasn't through a general election, rather through defections. Mark Reckless and Douglas Carswell defected from the Conservative Party to UKIP, making them the party's first MPs. To be fair to UKIP, following their defections, they did stand in by-elections and won. So unlike their fringe counterparts, UKIP have successfully had candidates elected to the Commons, albeit not in a real general election. Let's discuss the Liberal Party next, who won 10,876 votes in 2019 and no seats. We should probably make clear from the outset that this isn't the Liberal Democrat Party. Well, it's actually complicated. Back in 1981, the Labour Party was headed by Michael Foot. Many in the party were frustrated with his more left-wing tendencies, so they split off to form the Social Democratic Party. Soon after, they formed an alliance with the Liberal Party, merging to become the Social and Liberal Democrats. And then
got a little bit to get through, so we'll come back to that. That's 10 minutes. We've got 10 minutes of it left to go, but it's not gonna load. COVID. Fully jabbed arrivals from France must still quarantine. Fully jabbed travellers returning to England and Wales from France will have to quarantine from Monday. From the 19th of July, adults who have been double jabbed in the UK arriving from amber list countries will not need to isolate for 10 days. The government said the easing would not apply to France due to persistent cases of the beta variant, first identified in South Africa. They are concerned the vaccine may not work as well against the beta variant. Some 3.4% of cases recorded in France in the past 4 weeks, where the beta variant, according to the GISAID, the global open source database. It's crazy, isn't it? You have 60,000 supporters at Wembley, but they're worried about people that have had both doses coming back from France, but they're not worried about people slinging beer over each other at a football match and throwing litter everywhere. That's crazy, absolutely crazy. The more infectious Delta variant, first identified in India, accounts for almost all new cases in the UK. I mean, we can't be overly sure that everyone in Wembley didn't have a dose of the coronavirus. Can we? 60,000 people. How did they all check in? Obviously, they buy the ticket, they do their, what's the name? They do their track and trace, possibly. That's only possibly. We don't know 60,000, every single one had track and trace. We're surmising they did. But then we're also surmising that what's the chance of them catching COVID on the way in? 60,000 getting to one stadium. They've got to walk past someone with COVID, surely, on the way there. You don't know if they're carrying that germ in the stadium. You don't know if they're spitting their beer all over someone. You see a lot of beer thrown about at the game, I know that much. You see why a lot of people are in the uproar about, especially for kids going back to school, parents can't meet their new tutors. Parents can't see the kids at sports day. Then we've got this ironic thing about people coming back from France. Surely what's good for the goose is good for the gander. What is it? It's crazy. That's what it is. Health Secretary Sajid Javid said, "We have always been clear that we will not hesitate to take rapid action at our borders to stop the spread of COVID-19 and protect the gains made by a successful vaccination program. With restrictions lifted on Monday across the country, we'll be doing everything we can to ensure international travel is conducted as safely as possible and protect our borders from the threat of variants." Travel firms have criticised the move, accusing the government of causing confusion. Willie Walsh, the Director General of the International Air Transport Association, said, "The UK has no coherent policy on international travel and is destroying its own travel sector and the thousands of jobs that rely on it." Anyway, I'm not here to pull the government apart. I'm just, comparing, contrasting, trying to make an evaluation. And the compare and contrast is, like I'll just give you, similarity, the differences, the contradiction of itself, of the evaluation. It just doesn't add up. It just doesn't add up, does it? Government announcement means that anyone who has been in France in the previous 10 days will need to quarantine on the arrival to England in their own accommodation and will need a day 2 and day 8 rest tests, regardless of their vaccination status. This includes a fully vaccinated individual who transits through France from either a green or another amber country, but ministers indicated that Eurostar passengers on services travelling through France will not need to quarantine if the train did not stop in the country. Existing amber list exemptions for key workers such as haulers will remain in place. Travellers from France will still have an option of shortening their quarantine period through the test to release scheme if they pay for the test on day 5 and are negative. For arrivals from other amber list countries, the requirement to quarantine is being scrapped. For the fully vaccinated and under 18s from Monday in all parts of the UK, each UK sets its own travel rules. A Scottish Government spokesperson said ministers were considering the best approach for arrivals from France as we look to adopt our four-nation approach on international travel where possible. Wales said it would be following the change set by England, while Northern Ireland is yet to announce its intention. Well, I'll give you my verdict. It's as everyone's been saying, all the critics on social media, you see it, upset with their children not being able to see their new tutor. It's important that their mother and father go to school to help their child meet their new tutor, isn't it? Make them feel confident. It's quite daunting to be graduating into another year, isn't it, as a child? You think when we were kids and we had our mums there meeting our new tutor, makes you feel competent, doesn't it? That you're going into another year. Makes you feel good about yourself. Get your mum with you and making sure your tutor's all right. But now you can't do it. So you can see with this travel restriction, you have to quarantine if you're coming back from France, or the French are coming to UK. They've got to quarantine. Doesn't make sense. Not after the England game, 60,000 people. It does not make sense. But there you go. We're going to have a short break and we're going to have the last segment of the show. It's going to be a short show today, unfortunately, about 40-50 minutes long, but it's been 33 so far.
And they dropped the social part to become the party we know today. The issue was that the original Liberal Party had a lot of history in the UK, being one of only 2 major parties prior to the early 1900s, with many historic British prime ministers coming from the Liberal Party. As such, some members of the Liberal Party opposed the merger and created a new Liberal Party, intended as a continuation of the traditional Liberal Party prior to the merger. Unfortunately for the Liberal Party, though, they failed to even be as successful as the Liberal Democrats. That's likely because all of the major politicians in the party remained in the merged Liberal Democrat Party, and as such, they became the more legitimate party of the two. Unsurprisingly, the Liberal Party's ideology is libertarian, and they're in favour of civil liberties, even despite the pandemic and COVID-19. N2 are a Northern Irish party who picked up 9,814 votes in 2019. The party was founded in 2019, following Peter Toibin, a former member of Sinn Féin, resigning from the party due to his anti-abortion views. As you can imagine then, the party is seen as pretty conservative. This ideological conservatism can be seen additionally through their advocacy for parental choice in sex education. Interestingly though, some of their attitudes are also left-wing, such as their views on economics, migration and climate change. For example, they backed policies to end zero-hour contracts and to increase spending on public housing. The next party might be infamous, but with 0.02% of the votes and 9,739 ballots in 2019, the monster-raving Looney Party aren't exactly a significant force electorally. Unlike the previous parties, the monster-raving Looney Party don't present themselves as a serious force in politics. The party was founded by screaming Lord Sutch in the 1980s and aims to both joke around and offer candidates that protest voters can support. Some of their policies currently include anyone applying for 7-figure salary positions with the World Health Organization or as government health advisors would have to answer 15 correct questions on who wants to be a millionaire. And to unite the population, will surround the UK with a large cardboard box so that it can be both in and or out of the EU. This will be known as Schrodinger's Brexit. Interestingly too, their slogan, which was designed to set themselves apart from other parties, is Vote Insanity. The only real criticism we have is that it doesn't necessarily stand themselves apart of all of the other parties running at the general election. The final fringe party we're going to take a look at is the Christian People's Alliance, who secured 6,486 votes in 2019. The party grew in 1999 out of frustration with the UK seemingly becoming more secular. Specifically, the party grew out of a cross-party advocacy group. The decision to become a fully fledged party was made due to devolution, which introduced proportional representation to parts of the UK, making smaller parties feel as if they could achieve more power. Despite being a Christian party, though, their policies aren't explicitly about religion. One of their policies in the early 2000s was to ease motorway congestion, and some of this action was actually accepted by the government. Obviously, though, as a Christian party, they have also backed religious policies. A good example of this is their opposition to same-sex marriage. So if these are Britain's fringe parties, ones who can't realistically win in their current state, then why do they even exist? Well, obviously there isn't one answer. But according to a major paper in Parliamentary Affairs, they claim that minor parties aim to influence the behaviour of established parties and to expand the ideological boundaries of political culture. In addition to this, they also offer more choice to the electorate. For some parties, these points are demonstrated perfectly. UKIP, for example, clearly did influence the behaviour of the established parties. They grew out of the desire to leave the EU and were successful in forcing the Conservative government's hand in calling a referendum. If you want to know more about this, you'll be happy to know that we made a full video explaining UKIP's power and how they grew to prominence. The Monster Raving Moon Party, on the other hand, knows fully well that they won't be able to influence any of the major parties, nor do they try to. They exist simply to offer voters choice. They represent those who aren't just apathetic, but disenfranchised by the system itself. To actually turn up and vote for a joke party demonstrates that you aren't exactly on board with the major options. Some parties seem like a bit of a mixture of these factors, though. The alternative to the Liberal Democrats. This was certainly more of the case in the late 1980s, when the NDP-Liberal merger was formalised, and the Liberal Party offered an alternative for Liberal voters who opposed the merger. But it's much less of a factor today, with very few Lib Dem supporters even considering this option. So while these parties might not have power in the same way as the Conservative or Labour Party, they do still provide a democratic function, influence, and offering voters an alternative. Speaking of elections, Britain is going to vote on May 6th on a variety of topics, which we've made videos about. If you want to check out any of these things, from the Scottish election to the Police and Crime Commissioner election, then be sure to check out the videos linked in the description. Be sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon to be notified every time we release a new video. Special thanks to our Patreon backers who make videos like this one possible. And if you want to see your name at the end of videos, then you too can back us on Patreon. The link to that's in the description.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for staying both observed and preserved. You're preservant. You have great preservance. Thank you for staying here. Part of the Aristoxy social elite. Listen in. Tuition yourself in like a political analyst. Just by listening in. But talking about some of the worst, the most notorious criminals in the UK. Just recently, car incidents. Talking about the COVID, people having to quarantine to come back from France. You know, we compare, contrast, and we're making an evaluation. I mean, looking at similar and differences, similarities and differences. Looking at the England football game, 60,000 people go to the England football game. Parents can't go to their children's summer sports day. They can't meet their new tutors for their next year graduation, which has just happened, you know, which would happen yesterday, 16. You can go. Their last day at school. you can meet their new tutor, but yet they can have 60,000 at a football game, and you got a quarantine if you come back from France. Doesn't make sense, does it? Doesn't make sense. But anyway, moving on. Foreign aid. Who will be hit by UK government cuts? UK government's decision to cut spending on foreign aid has led to warning from aid agencies and opposition from MPs, including some Conservatives. I mean, you can't be angry at the government. The Parliament is the biggest judiciary in the UK. All we've got to do is just, they say jump, and we say how high. Abide by the law, best you can. For your safety is your priority. I mean, I still wear a COVID mask when I'm on the bus. I still wear a COVID mask when I go to shop. I mean, I have actually been known to forget it once, which was only the other day, and I did go in without a mask on. But I wear it. I strongly advise to wear it at all times. Save the cost of your life. Save the cost of your family's life. Mum, your dad, your brother, your sister, your niece, your nephew. Wear your mask at all times. This year, the annual aid budget has been reduced to 0.5% of national income. It had been at 0.7% since 2015, and this figure was a commitment in a 2019 Conservative manifesto. The difference between two figures is around £1 billion. The government says the reduction is temporary and will reverse it, but only when certain conditions are met. It has seen off an attempt by MPs to force it to do this now. How much do the UK spend on aid? I don't think they spend enough. I mean, they're pumping 60 million into Beijing a year. Beijing is like one of the richest countries. Not Beijing, with China, which Beijing is in China. China is one of the biggest globalization countries. Well, it is the biggest globalization country in the world. Why are we slinging 60 million into Beijing? I do not know. Anyway, UK spending on international aid figure for 2021 expected to be the lowest for 9 years. We spent 10 billion on international aid this year. Last year was 14.5 billion. 2009 was 15.2 billion. That's the most we've ever spent. This is the lowest. We're not the lowest we've ever spent. 2013 was 11.5 billion. So look, that's how much it's dropped. Almost below that. From 2013 to now, it's 10 billion. Last year, foreign aid spending met the 0.7% target, but fell for the first time in about a decade. This is because the overall economy shrank. What is the government's justification? It says 2015 legislation was introduced. The 0.7% target refers to fiscal circumstances which governments may refer to if they fail to meet it. It says the pandemic has inflicted immense damage on the economy, and cutting aid spending to 0.5% is a difficult decision to help restore the public finances. It says it will turn to 0.7%, but only when the Office for the Budget Responsibility (OBR) forecast that. If the government is not borrowing money for day-to-day spending, a current budget surplus. Underlying debt is falling as a percentage of national income, but some MPs have questioned when these tests will be met. In March, the OBR forecast that underlying debt as a percentage of national income will not start falling until 2024 to 25. How does UK compare with other donors? The government says the UK remains one of the largest aid donors in the world. Before the cuts, it had the second highest contribution as a percentage of GNI of the G7 group representing the world leading economies. How the UK compares in aid spending? Spending as a percentage of gross national income 2020. Germany is 0.73%, England in second place, 0.7%, France 0.53%, Japan 0.31%, Canada 0.31%, Italy 0.21%, and US 0.17%. Several other countries exceed the UN aid target of 0.7% in 2020, including Denmark of 0.73%, Norway 1.11%, and Sweden 1.14%. And As the UK cuts its aid budget, some developed countries have pledged to increase theirs. France is committed to a 0.7% contribution by 2025, as US President Joe Biden has proposed an increase in America's foreign aid. Where does foreign aid go to? UK aid funding supports hundreds of different projects around the world. The bulk of spending in 2020, more than 55%, was in Africa region and use of bilateral aid. The aid earmarked for specific projects or programs in particular countries, just under 39%, was spent on bilateral aid for Asia, which small amounts go into other parts of the world. Top recipients of UK bilateral aid in 2019. Pakistan is 305 million, Ethiopia 300 million, Afghanistan 292 million, Yemen 260, Nigeria 258, Bangladesh 256, and Syria 223. Government figures for 2019 show Pakistan was top recipient that year of bilateral aid, followed by Ethiopia, Afghanistan, Yemen, Nigeria, Bangladesh, and Syria. Ethiopia, Afghanistan, Yemen, and Syria, I know for a fact, are one of the worst off in an economic crisis, along with Venezuela. Some of UK almost is also given international bodies like the UN and others to spend and see fit. This is a multilateral aid. I do want to just point out, Ethiopia and Afghanistan is where coffee grain is harvested. That's where it's farmed, just so you know. In recent years, most UK aid has been bilateral, roughly 2/3, after a multilateral. Pakistan has received the most UK aid for some years now. It has high levels of deprivation, where nearly 1/3 people live in poverty, and 1 in 11 children dying before they were 5 years old. But it's also a nuclear-armed state, with relatively high defence spending. More than 8% of the government expenditure in 2019 was on the military, according to the World Bank data. Thank you all for tuning in this Arvo. Thanks ever so much for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed. Appreciate everyone coming in. Give me some acknowledgement. A little bit of acknowledgement gives me encouragement to make me want to keep coming back, producing good content. I'm always going to keep this up. This will be a well-known show very, very shortly. Very, very shortly. Just got to keep working hard, and we'll get there eventually. Hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work. Have a wonderful weekend. It's quite warm outside, to be fair. Get out, get some sunlight, go for a nice brisk walk, enjoy your day. Don't do anything I wouldn't. Take care, stay safe, and God bless.